embarrassing when people say, introduce me, and then I never correct them, but I just say it. And so.
No worries. No, I appreciate that. So we'll probably have like a minute of conversation here while we're getting people to pop in here, and
Hundreds of thousands of people are flowing in.
I'm telling you, it's getting crazy. I think we may have to
How many
increase
bouncers
our.
do you have at the Zoom wall? Kind of like checking IDs and like making sure people are wearing their masks.
Oh yeah, no, we had to get an extra large package for for Zoom. They couldn't handle this. It's too many to count, honestly.
My agent
But
sent over my rider where I asked for a bowl of green only M&Ms.
oh yeah, no, we have the Bentley that we brought over.
Mm-hmm. In the green.
The green M&Ms, yeah, we'll have to make sure that those are sent over to your exclusive hotel room.
I'm in the show business now with my new startup, and I've been dealing with talent and negotiations of contracts. And
oh man,
we're in the talent business is really what it is, because every talent has their own personality and their own nuance.
We definitely have to talk about that then. So we're gonna wait like another minute or two, let people kind of hop in. But
so that, yeah, I mean, this is one way they can see me and you, but we can't see their smiling faces.
No way. Yeah, it's unfortunately we live in the digital world now, and everybody wants to sit in their underwear and put on a dress shirt on top and call it a day.
My kid, I've been wearing athleisure for 15 months. So
15 years maybe. Who knows?
I was pretty. I wore jeans, but I was one of those guys that has not really worn jeans too much since
oh man,
last year.
I'm a jeans guy, so from my end, I've always just loved jeans. Brought to you by Levi Strauss here.
So even with the pandemic, you're still a jeans guy?
I'm still a jeans guy. My friends make fun of me because I am very much like not a sweats person, and they're like, "What do you wear around the house?" I'm like, "I wear jeans. This is what I wear around the house." So it's kind of goofy.
And you sleep, you sleep in your jeans and your pajamas, of course.
Oh yeah, no, jeans, absolutely. My jeggings actually at that point. You have to have a little comfort in your life. Well, let's do it. I think on our end, so just want to make a quick introduction to the VisualFizz Growth Series and VisualFizz. My name is Dan. I'm one of the managing partners at VisualFizz, and we host these growth series every 2 to 4 weeks. They used to be in person, and we loved having that, but unfortunately COVID made us take a little bit of a different turn. But that being said, we can still stay digital, and these videos live on forever, so that's nice. No pressure, Matt. But today we have Matt Matros, who is a serial entrepreneur based in Chicago, launched a series of businesses. I won't get too far into it because my hope is Matt can kind of give us a quick, brief introduction around what he's done over the past few years. But beyond that, we're going to take a very similar approach to the podcast, How I Built This. So we're going to learn a lot about Matt, really dig deep, and then at the end, allow any viewers to ask any questions, and we'll make sure to ask Matt. So Matt, without further ado, really great to have you on here, and looking forward to spending the next hour with you here.
Let's dive right in. Open book. Let's get that book.
Let's do it. Right now, let's do it. We're ready. So if you want to give us just a quick intro to some of the businesses you've launched, and we'll dig deeper into that. But if you kind of want to give us a quick scoop of the past 10 years or so.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll start with why I'm in the Midwest. I was a sports agent for baseball players out of college. I grew up in LA and then came to the Midwest to go to University of Michigan. So went to U of M for graduate school, got my MBA and graduated in 2005. Thought about going back into sports, but instead wanted to do traditional brand management. So came here to work for Kraft Foods, brand manager of Kraft Cheese. Nice. Can't say that with a straight face, I felt. Pretty early on in my career at Kraft, I knew I didn't want to work for a big company, though I learned a lot. And then had an idea to start a smoothie store, basically a protein shake right downtown. So I did some business planning, which we can talk about later as part of this if you'd like. Liquidated my entire life savings and opened the first protein bar in May of 2009. For those that don't know, Protein Bar is a healthy food, fast casual restaurant. So in the vein of like a Chipotle, We serve protein shakes, burritos, wraps, salads, the whole nine. So I opened my first location in May in 2009 with just protein shakes, struggled mightily out of the gate, and then added food to the menu about 8 months in. And then that's when things took off. Started raising money from customers. So literally people who I got to know while working in the restaurants. Opened about 20 locations over the next few years, and then sold a majority of the business to Catterton Partners, which is a preeminent consumer-focused private equity firm. I stayed on and ran the business for about a year, but sort of realized I had outkicked my coverage. The company was a little bit bigger than my skill set would allow. I'm an entrepreneur, not necessarily a restaurant company executive. So I worked a deal out where we hired a gentleman to replace me, and I took some time off and traveled. It was one of the best things I ever did. And then came back in 2015 and started a coffee business. This was right around when bulletproof coffee was a burgeoning trend. This concept of clean caffeine combined with grass-fed butter, oil, what have you. I decided to start Limitless cold brew. Same thing as with Protein Bar, where I took my life savings, sold my condo, got an SBA loan, and then started Limitless. Started as a coffee business, wholesale mostly into offices, launched consumer packaged goods, and then opened coffee shops. Was a failure with that too. Cold brew is tough business and not very large of a category. So through the darn near bankruptcy with Limitless, I sprinkled caffeine powder into my Perrier. I drink a lot of sparkling water. And one day we were decaffeinating coffee beans in our roastery and sprinkled it into my Perrier and said, aha, no one's doing sparkling waters. This was late 2017. I spent the first part of 2018 cold calling manufacturers, co-packers, bottlers, the whole nine. And then Dr. Pepper agreed to make my product. So Keurig Dr Pepper made Limitless caffeinated sparkling water. And then it was off to the races. So started getting the product into retail, adding retailers all across the country, and got extremely lucky when Walmart took us national. And then that culminated in me selling the business to Keurig Dr Pepper just before the pandemic hit in January of last year. I'm now a paid consultant with Keurig Dr Pepper, but working on a new startup in media, trying to tell brand and founder stories. So similar to what this, I plan on with
awesome.
Studios, we will be telling the story of emerging brands and founders. So
that's great.
That's the last few years. I could keep,
man.
I guess
you were busy, huh? Yeah, we're gonna dive much deeper. So that is that's one heck of a kind of background, and it's interesting. It's kind of like you had to pivot a few times, so we'll talk about that too. So let's start kind of way back. I know you gave us the year that you graduated from your MBA, but let's start even further back to your childhood. You said you grew up in LA. Talk us through that. Like, were you an entrepreneurial kid? Did you have that drive? Were your parents kind of creative or run their own business? Like, how did it start?
Yeah, so it's funny. I do think that entrepreneurship is an innate quality. You either sort of have these risk-taking abilities or you don't. In my instance, though, I was fortunate that I saw it from my father. My father passed away when I was 11, but he was a small business owner. He was a hustler, just like I am. He worked 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. He had a dry cleaners in our hometown. I grew up pretty modest hometown in suburban Los Angeles. I wouldn't even call it suburban Los Angeles. Outside of Los Angeles.
Yeah, LA is like a big suburb, and then you're in the outside suburbs. Huh?
Yeah. And then when he passed away, figuratively, not literally, but figuratively, I sort of became the man of the house with my mom and my sister and I, and felt that it was my duty to fight, claw, and survive. So as early as 7th grade, I was starting ventures. The first one being a little keychain company. It was called Sports Brats, if you know what a sports brat is, but they had these little keychains and all the Major League Baseball and NBA and NFL teams, and they were super neat. And I had my Lakers and Dodgers and USC.
Nice.
And I wanted to have one for my middle school. So this is pre-internet. I remember writing a letter to the Sports Brats company of, I don't know, Pennsylvania or something, saying, hey, I want to create one for my school. took the risk and bought an inventory of these little keychains.
Wow,
And
that's amazing.
sold them through at my school. And then did other things like sold candy and whatnot. So it was the hustle was sort of always there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Actually, so a little almost similarly, when I was probably in junior high, I started a free hugs day at my school and bought a bunch of wholesale T-shirts, bought a bunch of like T-shirt spray paint. Yeah, free hugs. And at one point, it was so popular, probably 1 in every 4 kids had a free hug. And I was at a school with 3,000 kids, right? So that's a lot of kids, like probably a few hundred.
So the business was the T-shirt. The business wasn't the hugs.
No, the business, no, not paying for hugs. That's different. That's a little weird. But the T-shirts, and now realizing I sold them for way too cheap. But back in the day, I'd buy the T-shirts. It's like $3-4 for all my materials. Cost of goods landed, right? Do the labor and sell them for like $10-15. But I'd have advocates like selling T-shirts for me and all
like multi-level marketing. How old are you?
I'm telling you, I was probably 14 at the time, 12, 13. I don't know, whatever you are in junior high and high school. But it turned out being pretty.
Did it become uncool to be wearing the free hug shirt because so many people were wearing them?
No, it flooded over to the next, our kind of sister school, as well as the next year that I was already in college. It was in high school. When I was in college, like that 3rd, 4th year, it kept going. I think it tapered off like 2 years after I left. And so I do agree, like these might be, little ventures, but it does come from a young age that you're like, I want to do something. Like I want to make my own money. Like I want to sell stuff. So it's very cool that, you got there early. So what was that?
Then you sold the business to VF Corporation, the owner of.
Yeah, VisualFizz bought us out. Yeah, and we canceled the whole deal. It wasn't enough money in it. But okay, so you started this business. Were there other ones in the process that you started like working on, during college, during your late high school years?
So then I get to USC, freshman at USC, and I was always goal oriented. I sort of always had something I was working towards. And up until USC, it was about going to USC. So I was that kid who at, 5 or 6 years old said, hey, I want to go to USC. My dad went there and, we lived in LA and we watched this football games and it was just sort of like, I got into it. Although my father was never big into the sports, it was something that my mom and I had. So my dad and sister would go ride horses. We had horses. And on the weekends, me and my mom would go to USC football games. So yeah, I had always aspired to go to SC. So then I got into SC. I was like, all right, I'm here. So now what?
Yeah.
And my next goal, pretty early on, maybe like around 10 or 11, I heard about this career of becoming a sports agent. And that was sort of where I wanted to put my attention. So decided, hey, I want to be a sports agent. So cold called sports agents in LA. There's not hundreds of them. There's a dozen or so, and got through to somebody at Beverly Hills Sports Council, and he went to SC, so that helped, and ended up applying as an intern. So that's
awesome.
18 years old as a freshman at USC, and now interning at the sports agency, and worked my way up through the sports agency all through school. So it was a pretty awesome experience. Didn't really experience college much, which was the impetus for wanting to go back to business school, is because I just didn't really have a college experience. I was, my senior year, I was in spring training for 6 weeks, not even in California. I missed like a number of midterms. All my friends were on spring break and I'm in spring training. I'm not super proud of it, but it was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a sports agent.
You do what you want to do. Yeah, listen, it's a drive. Absolutely.
So that was my thing. And then I did that for several years, and then kind of had a Jerry Maguire moment where I realized I didn't want to do it anymore. And that's where business school came in.
Is that when you decided to move to Chicago at that point, or were you
to go to Michigan? So
that's right.
I'm working for the sports agency. I'm in Seattle, 22 at the time, and was with my middle school science teacher, who I still to this day have a great relationship with, and we went to a Seattle Mariners baseball game to watch one of my clients, and it was just sort of expressing how unhappy I was working for this sports agency. And it was mostly like the athletes were great. it was just all the other egos in the industry. It was the agents I worked for, or the other agents in the business, or all the people that try to come after athletes that just made me turn. I was turning myself into a bad person. I just didn't really enjoy the kind of things that I was doing to others, and lying, and it was just not it was not me.
Yeah.
And sort of it expressed over this weekend how unhappy I was. And Michael, he's like, "Well, just leave." It kind of had never.
You're like, wait, what? You could leave?
Kind of had never occurred to me that I could just leave, especially because you think you're doing, especially as a youngster, you're putting in your dues. And I'm like, oh, this sucks, but this is what you do when you're young and you're putting in your dues. So I thought the suckiness was just this part of being young, when in reality, I just didn't aspire to be the people that I worked for. And that was sort of like a big moment for me. It's like I'm trying to do that, but you're not even that neat. I sort of had seen through them. And like I said, the athletes were great. It was all the other egos.
Interesting. That's interesting considering kind of where you're at now, which we'll talk through in a little bit because it's kind of in a somewhat similar space. But I have to learn more about this new project you're working on, because it is with talent, right? We'll get to it.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Let's get there in a little bit. I got a little of myself here. Okay, so you've decided at this point it's time to leave, which I totally agree. I mean, there has to be a point where you're cut off, and I think it's really interesting. I'll segue because I did mention how I built this. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and maybe they'll listen to ours one day here. But I did listen to how Hinge got started, and it was really interesting because it happened from a series of breakups, and the founder was just very heartbroken, and essentially there were a series of pivots that finally created that successful story of what Hinge is, a multi-billion-dollar business. So I'm curious to kind of understand, what was that pivotal moment? And you kind of just mentioned it, but like, what made you get into food? Because it doesn't sound like that was something you ever really did in the past, right?
Well, one thing that I sort of have left out of the whole backstory of all this is that I grew up heavy. So I was the fat kid. And it didn't help that my name was Matt, so that rhymes with fat. So
No.
kids can be mean, right?
Kids are mean.
That was I just was the heavy kid, and I've put on a few pounds over the last few years. But back when I was 22 and I left the sports agency, I committed to a high protein diet. This was back in 2001, 2002, back when Atkins and the low carb trend was starting to take off. And it was really the first time that science had debunked the idea of the food pyramid, if you recall, carbs on the bottom and fat on the top. Finally we were like skeptical of that as a nation. So I subscribed to this low carb diet, and it worked for me. It worked great. I ended up shedding 60 pounds over the course of 6 or 7 months, and just sort of kept it off. So the big thing came for me. Never really a desire to work for Kraft Foods. I wanted to just do some sort of consumer marketing. So whether it was L'Oreal on women's hair care, where I interned, or Procter and Gamble on dog food, I didn't really care what the product was. I just wanted to learn consumer marketing. And it just so happened that Kraft worked out, and it was an organization I wanted to join in the city I wanted to be in. So that's what got me to Chicago and to do that. But the food thing happened. I liken it to Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, where he talks about 10,000 hours, and this concept of needing 10,000 hours to develop some sort of a proficiency, like an expert level of proficiency. And a few examples he cites in his book are, Bill Gates didn't just accidentally code Windows in his dorm room at Harvard. Like he had. He went to a prestigious school in Seattle that just so happened to have one of the first mainframe computers that he was coding against. So he was working at it, and then that's what allowed him to develop his proficiency of coding, which created Windows. Or like the Beatles weren't just discovered in Liverpool; they were playing years and years and years together, where they started to develop this orchestra-like proficiency. And for me, food and nutrition was kind of that thing. I lost a bunch of weight while heavily studying nutrition. I kept it off through business school and over the years, so much so that I wanted to make a career out of high protein, low carb foods. Or not career. I wanted to make my business around high protein and low carb foods. So that was sort of like my 10,000 hour moment. Where I developed.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it goes back to that phrase that most overnight successes take years to build. It's one of my favorites because it's so true. There's so many brands like, look at Zuckerberg, or all these other guys, and you're like, you know what? This was not an accidental process. And especially when you do listen to, the podcasts and watch Shark Tank and all these other, which I love the fact that there's so much out there now, so much knowledge, because even when I was in school, which wasn't too long ago, there was so little that was about entrepreneurship, unless it's like get rich quick, like figure out real estate, and it's like there's so many verticals you can be in that aren't real estate or money management or something along those lines.
I joke, when I was coming out of business school in 2005, I mean, I went to Michigan, great school. And this was 2005. It's not like I said 1990. Like,
yeah,
entrepreneurs were losers. Like, they were the people that like couldn't get jobs.
Yeah.
Like, everyone wanted to do something entrepreneurial. And it was thanks to Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos that they've sort of become rock stars over the last 8 years. And Shark Tank has certainly fueled that. Now it's kind of neat. I get to be invited to do shows like this, or how I built this, or Shark Tanks exist to sort of celebrate this level of entrepreneurship. It does come a little bit at a cost, though, because much like anything that's in popular media, it may set people up with some false expectations, or that it may seem to be glamorous or without its misses or drawbacks. I have tremendous mental health issues because of it. I sacrifice a lot within my personal life and my physical life.
Sure.
It's not easy. It's not made for everyone. It's just sort of what my
it's not. It's not. And you bring up a good point, which I didn't even think we'd touch on, but that is a great point, because when you're starting a business and everybody thinks start a business, get rich, right? Or start a business to live a fabulous life. It's more like start a business, figure out what you're doing for the next 6 to 12 months, potentially get traction, spend a lot of your time away from the people that you care about, or sitting on a computer. I mean, you see those people on the beach, coding something out, but at the end of the day, it's like, you have to be ready for a crazy roller coaster. And I think a lot of times when people, they come to me and they're like, hey, you run a, small agency, but one that seems like it's growing year over year. And they're like, is it, what do I do? I was like, expect it to be really difficult and a roller coaster, because there's days where, we win a new client. It's a client we've been working for 3, to try to win for 3 months. And it's, you're up here, top of the roller coaster. It's awesome. And at the same time, you get a client that hates you, or that, something happens, or you don't win it, or, you're second place, amongst a series of different prospects to become the agency of record. And those are like the low points. And I think a lot of people have to be ready for that. And understand that it's not always up here, that you have to be ready for a very slow incline to finally get to that first peak. So you're definitely right. And I'll kind of use this as a segue, because I know we could talk about this for a long time, but I want to talk about obviously Protein Bar now, because you said you've basically sacrificed your life savings, everything you've earned, right? I mean, give us more information about how you did this. And like, I did listen to how Chipotle got started. It sounds actually very similar in that kind of storyline. So can you explain, like, why did you start this restaurant? Like, did you have restaurant experience at all? Did anyone tell you you're crazy for even thinking about starting a restaurant in River North, which for anyone not from Chicago is one of the most expensive real estate in Chicago?
Well, I mean, that was number 2 was my River North. Number 1 was in the Loop across the street.
So almost just
ground zero, right? I love when people used to say that about the restaurant experience. They're like, "Oh my gosh, did you have any?" I'm like, "No, but I've been to them." Kind of like how
very
I feel
different.
it's a media company. It was like, "Oh, do you have experience with media?" I'm like, "No, but I watch TV. We're basically creating videos." So no experience, but that's the difference between entrepreneurs and everybody else. Is the entrepreneur is okay with the no experience and almost uses it in their favor, and also loves the lack of experience that brings naivete, but also a big vision for things. So it was October 17th of 2007, and I was working out at a Lifetime Fitness in Old Orchard, which is near Crafts. I used to go every morning and work out, and then I'd get a little shake that they used to sell. I'd pay like $9 for these shakes, and they put these tiny scoops of protein.
Yeah.
I must have done.
I used to work at that Lifetime many years
ago. In Old Orchard?
Yeah.
No way! Wow.
Probably in 2000 and 9, 8,
Oh,
like
so I
long,
missed
yeah.
you. Yeah, that's where I hatched up the idea for, I don't remember the name of the people that worked there, but at that Life Cafe, I'd get those shakes, $8. The Serious Soy is what it was called.
They were expensive, yeah.
And after a while, I just was like, what am I doing? And then I started just scooping protein into a baggie. And then I give it to the folks that work there, and they blend it up for, $2 for the cost of the milk and the banana. Did that for a year. And then I was like, oh, I want to start a protein shake shop. No one's doing this.
Yeah.
At the time, for folks that may be watching don't know what Jamba Juice is. Jamba Juice was pretty popular. Jamba Juice is essentially a fruit smoothie place full of sugar, packed with sugar. And I was just skeptical that people were going to start seeing through that and seeing that juices are just sugar. I was right about that. I was just wrong that I could have an entire restaurant that supported shakes only. So that was
Sure.
So, anyways, October 2017. I'm sorry, October 17th of 2007. I get the idea and I drive into my office at Kraft and I get to my desk. I was so excited. I got my email open. I remember writing an email to my best friend, guy's still my best friend to this day. Subject line said, "This is it, we're doing this." And I like typed out the whole plan for protein bars, this big long email. I wish I still had it.
That'd be great.
And I ended up doing it. It didn't make sense to start a smoothie shop with another human being. This guy's quite and like I said, he's still my best friend, but ended up doing protein bars. So October of 07 was when I had the idea. So then when you have an idea, that's just one thing. It's one thing to have the idea, and there's a couple things that happen next between the idea and execution. And the first one is just research. Research around, do customers, consumers want this? Research around, does this already exist? Research around, how does the economics of this kind of business work? And that part was actually one of the easier parts. I think a lot of entrepreneurs sort of skip over.
Yeah, because they're so excited. They're so giddy to start.
They want to go after, but they need to make sure there's an actual business there. Like that research is what helps. So as part of that research, you have to look a lot into just the financial viability of the business. So my number one source of resource, or number one source for information there, is publicly traded stocks. So for me, I was able to pull the 10Ks and 10Qs of Chipotle and Jamba Juice, which told me exactly how businesses like that operate. It was incredibly insightful, but it's all right there for free. I think folks kind of underutilize that tool. It is all right there.
That's interesting.
And then I did the rest of my business planning just to find out, I knew it was viable to have a shake, right? Like, because Jamba Juice has proven that. But is it viable to have the kind of shake shop I want in the kind of location I want with the kind of size and space that I want? So I just had a business plan for that. And also, how much is it going to cost to do? So when I business plan, I thought that it was going to cost $440,000. That was sort of the number I had. Of course, I was wrong. It ended up costing $590,000.
Sounds right.
So the 440 was 220 of all my life savings and then 220 of SBA loans. So I liquidated everything, all my 401k, stocks and bonds. I mean, in hindsight, I was pretty lucky to be a 29-year-old and have assets worth $220,000 that I could sell out and have the cash. That's sort of a testament to starting work when I was 12 and working for the sports agency through college, and a mom who wouldn't let me touch the Social Security money I got after my dad died. So yeah, business plan, life savings, and then January 5th of 2008 is like, you're kind of like the go, no go decision, which a lot of entrepreneurs are faced with this decision, and then they continue to analyze, and they end up getting decision paralysis and end up never doing it. So at some point, an entrepreneur needs to say, I'm either going to do this or I'm not. And I did.
Good, cool. So there's so much to talk about, and I feel like this can go over because we're just at the beginning. But so at this point, you've launched, and obviously the smoothies wasn't enough, right? And just for anyone who's not from Chicago, the Loop is the business district. So after 5:30 dead, right? Generally. There are some theaters and whatnot, but not a lot of people live there. And so what was that, that pivotal moment there, because we have to hop into the Limitless discussion soon. But what was that moment that allowed you to really grow from one location to two, to you said up to 20, right? I mean, how did that happen? Because that you said was only a couple of years, 2-3 years.
There was a few things that happened right after I opened. There were people that came in and drank protein shakes. Like people got it. That was one thing I was wrong at. I thought it was going to take a while for people to kind of understand, why do I need a protein shake? Is Jamba Juice unhealthy? Like people got that fast.
Good.
The problem was I needed to be doing about $3,000 a day just to break even, and I was doing about 2. So I mean, I was losing money. I wasn't going to survive much longer. I go around the loop. I'm like, man, it's Tuesday in June. It must be a holiday or something. Where is everybody? Lines out the door at Chipotle, lines out the door at Subway. So it wasn't too hard for me to realize that people will leave their office during the day. It's to get lunch though. So unless you're selling food, you're not going to have much of a business. So in September of that year, we opened in May, and in September of that year, I added food to the menu. Literally just things that I was eating, salads and quinoa bowl. People didn't even know what quinoa was. I added quinoa bowls. I made a chili. I created this little chili recipe over the weekend. And September, I don't know, 23rd-ish or whatever that year, added food to the menu, and that's just when things kind of took off.
That's amazing.
And then got pretty lucky because the restaurant industry is typically the worst month is January. That's a twofold reason. One, because most people have spent gobs of money in December. And reason number 2 is just a cold. Like no one's really going out. There's not a reason to go out in January. All the reasons to have gone out were in Q4. But in my business, selling healthy food, that's when January is the best month. So
the wishes,
and got really lucky because that particular January of, I guess it would have been 2009, it was unseasonably warm. So like wasn't snow that or cold weather or rain I was contending with. So people were out walking, looking for healthy options. And boom, it just took off.
Especially because January is when everybody is, they had their New Year's resolutions.
January and healthy eating go together.
It's great.
Unlike most restaurants.
That's cool. So let's pop it in a little further because I'm watching the clock and I feel like there's like I said, so much to talk about.
We only have 7 more hours, right?
Yeah. This is a midnight special. Yeah, we just keep going. So you finally ended up getting acquired, and did they come to you? Were you looking to pop out of the business, or like what was the goal there?
So this was in 2013. By 2012, so opened the first one, sucked, made it not suck, became really popular, and then individuals were just coming out of the woodwork. Like, oh my God, I love this place. I come here all the time. And they were bankers and traders and lawyers and like wealthy people that work in the loop. I'd see them every day. So get lots of questions. What is it? Is this like a franchise? I'm like, nah, man, it's all me. So I started thinking about new locations, needed to figure out a way to fund it because I put everything I had into the first one. So I knew raising money was the thing I needed to do. Found one human in particular, helped fund my second location. He's still my business partner now to this day.
Great.
We then raised money for store number 3 together through his network and my network. And then that was a huge success. And then 4 was a huge success, 5, 6, 7. But what happened with number 7, it was our first one outside of Chicago. It was in Washington, DC. August 12th, 2012 was when we opened that one. And it's about 3 years to the day after the first one. And then that's when all the private equity firms came calling, because we had proven that we weren't just this local hometown thing. It was, we had proven portability, that we could replicate this, because it was our DC opening was to this day still our biggest opening.
Wow.
I got pretty lucky because in 2012, 2013, there were 2 sectors of consumerism that were super hot. Sector 1 that was really hot was just specialty retail, which is what you would define protein bar as, anything that you can replicate and multiply. Although we are a restaurant, we're really more of a specialty retailer. You can have lots of Noodles and Company had just gone public. Potbelly was about to go public. Container Store, like it was specialty retail was on fire.
Yeah.
And then the other part of consumerism that was hot was health and wellness. And we were both. So it was like we were the hot girl at the dance.
Man.
So we had inbound private equity after inbound private equity. So for me, it really became down to the decision of, do I partner with private equity or continue to grow the way I wanted to grow? And the decision at that point ultimately comes down to how much capital do I need to bring into the business? I could continue to keep raising little chunks here and there, and then keep opening a store. By that time, I was doing a couple $1,000,000 a raise, each time I was raising dough, but I wanted to put the foot on the gas, and ended up selling about 60% of the business for $25 million to Catterton Partners, that private equity firm. I went from being the majority owner of the business to now not.
Sure.
So being a majority to being a minority, and now having kind of a boss. So that was a big rude awakening.
Yeah. Interesting. Wow. But it's a very interesting story. We have to do another segment on just that. Let's hop into Limitless Coffee now, because this was your next venture. You said you've put quite a bit into it, and it was I'm a big coffee person, love coffee, and you said it's a fail. It was a cold brew business. Let's go into that. What got you into coffee, and let's kind of speed through a little bit. I don't want to rush it, so if you have to go over, it's no problem. But what got you into the Limitless business, and
so
how did you even come up with it?
You can go pretty fast. It's a story of focus or lack thereof. So my thesis with Limitless was, I felt better when I drank a certain type of coffee. So that certain type being a wet washed bean that was air roasted, which I wasn't alone in my thesis, because that was the exact thesis that Bulletproof Coffee was talking about. So at least I felt confirmation on that. I just thought I could market it a little differently than Bulletproof, and go to market differently. So sold my condo, but the business with Limitless that was brilliant was doing kegs of cold brew into offices. I had this beautiful wholesale business doing a couple $1,000,000 with just me and a couple guys in a truck. It was awesome. And sometimes I think, like, if I wish that I maybe had just stayed doing wholesale into offices. We had the Chicago Cubs. That's how I got the Jake Arrieta jersey. He was a huge drinker.
Nice.
WeWork, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the trading firms, like, we would supply them with a kegerator and then sell them cold brew. Kind of like the Hewlett Packard model, give them a printer for cheap and then sell them. Beautiful business. But then I lost focus or got greedy. I don't know what it was, but wanted to ultimately go into retail, so grocery stores with bottled product, and then open coffee shops. So that's what I did. And the bottles was just a sucky business. It's just a small category. People don't buy coffee at grocery stores. They buy it at freaking Starbucks. That was a huge failure.
That's interesting. You bring up a good point. I'm always a big fan of the Levi Strauss story. You don't go mining for gold. You sell them jeans. You sell them shovels. So you kind of went in there kind of under the radar as co-working facilities and office space perks were coming about. But maybe it was just wanting to be larger. That's interesting though, because I'm a big coffee drinker. But I guess you're right. I don't really buy coffee off the shelf. But then you came up with this idea. You talked about it a little bit briefly, and you pivoted quite a bit based on just almost luck, right? I mean, just being there in the right place. And so, did this caffeinated canned beverage? I mean, was it substantially larger than the other business? Like, how did that grow? Was it the partnership with with
Katie? No, Dr. Pepper just made the product. For me, it was about selling something that people wanted to buy. I was selling this. No one wanted to buy it. So I had a decision to make: continue to fund this. And the thing about consumer products is that you don't make money early on. It's not like I could just keep it small and keep generating profit and not be as profitable. Like if Protein Bar, for example, the stores were profitable, and then if I didn't want to grow, you just keep the one. With consumer packages, you can't do that. You have to fund it to grow it. So I was staring bankruptcy in the face. So it was only out of mere survival. The same thing with Protein Bar. It was only out of survival that I realized, holy crap, I need to start selling something that people want to eat. Limitless. I need to start selling something that people want to drink. So that was where the pivot came from. It was not being rigid and knowing that I got one more shot.
How did you know that people wanted to drink it? Because this is it's such an interesting market because, as you mentioned, it doesn't exist, right? You have caffeine when you drink, pop, but it's not caffeinated pop, right? You know what I mean? Like you're getting something out of it. And I think a lot of people who don't like coffee will drink like a Coke or a Pepsi because of.
The thing is that unlike with the cold brew, I wasn't solving a problem. But with the sparkling water caffeine, I was. There wasn't a non-soda option that provided this lift. And LaCroix didn't have caffeine in it. LaCroix was super popular. So I just solved a bigger problem, or I solved a problem that more people had. I bet that more people are looking for something to help them kill Diet Coke than we're just a cold coffee that they could get anywhere. So for young entrepreneurs that think they solve a problem, just ask themselves, they just got to ask themselves, how big is this problem? Is it really that? And oftentimes I will see entrepreneurs try to tell themselves that it is, just like I told myself that cold brew is a big problem, but it's not.
That's interesting. And this dates pre the boom of seltzer, which was probably about 4 years ago, right? I mean,
it was part of the boom. Like the boom
was it during the boom or right before
it was LaCroix.
Well, rather the alcohol. Yeah. So LaCroix has been around forever, but really, when did that start to grow? I mean,
really burgeoned in like 2015, 2016. Started getting a ton of office distribution, and then that led to retail distribution. And people realize, oh, there's this neat thing that's 0 calories but has some flavor in it. That's great. And there was nothing else that had 0 calories with some flavor in it. And in this instance, also bubbles. So LaCroix took off. So that's what sort of started this seltzer boom. As it relates to the hard seltzer industry, that shouldn't have been too hard to have predicted either, because hard seltzer as a category is really just a convergence of a couple of trends, the trends of sparkling water, which is 0 or low calories, and the people who want to drink alcoholic beverages, but without lots of calories. So it kind of all came together.
And sugar.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's interesting. And so let's speak through. I know we're kind of going to get into the time a little bit of the Q&A, but I mean, how did that scale? Like, what was the next step? How was the acquisition? And we don't have to get into too many details, but what was the acquisition process there?
It all happened really fast. I mean, fortunately, I had done a lot of work with cold brew. Like I knew who all the retail buyers were because I was trying to sell this thing for 2 years. And I'd go to retailers and they'd be like, God, do we need another cold brew brand? There's like 15 of them right now. But when I called them on the water, it was different because LaCroix was booming. Sparkling water was a couple $2 billion. Cold brew was maybe 200 million. And I was doing something different. So it was like, okay. So I was able to get the attention of the retailer much easier. So getting on the shelf was much easier with the water than it was the coffee, because this is different. It was a different product in a bigger category. So then it just took off. So, but the thing that really was fortunate for me was my national launch at Walmart. So getting in all 4,400 Walmart stores across the country was pretty unheard of for a startup brand. And we got it. So thank you.
And it makes sense because you had the distribution with Dr Pepper, and
they weren't the distribution; they were the manufacturing.
Oh, the manufacturing, and then you also had a more relatable product, because I think a lot of people aren't willing to potentially pay a premium on coffee when they could get like Dunkin' Donuts, make it at home, etc.
No, they are willing to pay a premium for coffee. They just already have a number of places they already do it at.
Sure.
Starbucks Corporation.
I guess I'm thinking like the average, average American, like where do they want to spend those dollars? And it's like, is it, a caffeinated water that's healthy, that's going to be 0 calories, or is it coffee? And then how many can you drink per day? Also, like, what is the, would they be drinking more of these caffeinated waters?
The difference is there was no coffee doesn't have a problem with soda I was going after the coffee industry, which didn't have a problem. People didn't need to switch to Limitless or any cold brew for that matter.
Yeah.
But with sparkling water, the problem is we're going after diet soda, which is horrible for you. People are looking for man, I wish I didn't. No one ever says, man, I wish I drank more Diet Coke. Like people are trying to quit Diet Coke. Now, certainly there are some people who will never quit it, and that's fine. But people are looking for an alternative to diet sodas, or regular sodas for that matter. So that was the big difference. Coffee's nothing wrong with it. Starbucks,
Yeah,
Dunkin',
no, it's
wherever you
great.
buy it, that's cool. There's just nothing wrong with it.
There's just a
Soda, on
lot of
the other hand,
options. Yeah.
has something wrong. That's why I said earlier about finding the problems, the most
Mm-hmm.
important thing.
Oh, very cool. Okay, let's hop into SHOPFLIX Studios. So this is what we were talking about. You know, half an hour ago, you were kind of in the business of, dealing with kind of stars or kind of big shots or individuals that are, a little bit more in the fame and media industry. So like, what is SHOPFLIX? Because honestly, I'll be honest, I don't really know quite as much as I should.
We haven't launched yet. We don't even have a product.
Well, there we go. I was like, how come I
no one knows what
enough?
SHOPFLIX
I don't know enough about this. This is the formal launch party, guys.
Kind of is. So the thing about SHOPFLIX, this past summer, my wife and I were expecting our first baby, and because of COVID, we couldn't go to Bye Bye Baby to test drive strollers. That's the first big decision that you make when you got a baby on the way. It's like, where are you going to put that little guy? Well, the websites of all the brands were boring and no dissimilar from one another, and all the review sites were biased. So I found the best experience of figuring out what baby stroller was going into the park and talking to couples. Hey, what do you like? Show us how it works. So that's when the light bulb went off on live streaming of retail, which is what the category. I wish I could take credit for it, but in China, it's how retail gets done with Taobao and a few others. So I just said I wanted to do it in a certain way. Knew I didn't want to do SHOPFLIX by myself like I did with Limitless and Protein Bar. So called some of the best people I knew, and one of the first people that came to mind was a woman who I'd known from Michigan, who was very early on in a business based in Chicago called Trunk Club, which was sold to Nordstrom. So I called her. I think it was early October. Said, Lindsay, I'm thinking about this idea. And she says, man, I wish I could do this with you. I say, no, that's why I'm reaching out to you. Why can't you? Let's talk. So she drove to Chicago. She lives in Ann Arbor, and we spent a couple of days whiteboarding the idea. And now here we are, raised close to a couple $1 million from some local VCs, and try to make it go of it. So essentially, what is SHOPFLIX? SHOPFLIX is a network. So we are a network to celebrate the culture of shopping and consumerism. So much like HGTV celebrates DIY culture and Food Network celebrates food, SHOPFLIX will celebrate consumerism. So we're going to we're going to have a bunch of television shows that you'll watch on your phone, on your website, or on your TV, or on YouTube. A bunch of shows that celebrate consumerism. We'll have shows that are funny. We'll have shows that are serious. We'll have shows that are, you'll laugh, you'll cry. Like we're building a portfolio of television shows now that we're shooting as we speak, and we hope to go kind of live beta-ish with content in about a month, so mid to late May.
Wow. And what is qualifying a show? Is it like a 30-minute show like we're used to, or is it kind of like a short? Like
so in today's media world, it's not really what it used to be, where there's 30-minute blocks and you either have a 30 block or a 60 block, and you're either 22 minutes or 44, with the rest being commercials. In today's streaming world, it's sort of thought of as a short form or long form, with short form kind of in that 6 to 12 minutes, and then long form in that kind of 20 to 35 minutes. We'll see once we actually kind of edit things through, but that's sort of where we're targeting is a basket of them. So a couple longer form shows. So Breaking Through is one of our long form shows. It stars Melissa Chastain, who's an amazing TV personality. She's on E! and Bravo and NBC. She will tell the story of mostly female founders who've overcome adversity. So our first episode is a woman, Gorjana Rydell, who has a jewelry retail chain and brand called Gorjana, Gorjana, mostly in the West Coast. And her story is about coming here from Serbia as a youngster and starting this jewelry brand. Our next episode will be about Sarah and Ben Jensen, who are an amazing couple that live in LA, who had a 14-year infertility journey. They just couldn't get pregnant. And then finally, Sarah's sister gave birth as a surrogate to their first child. And then Ben's sister gave birth to their second child as a surrogate. But along the way, they learned that it was hormonal imbalance that was causing a lot of their infertility. So they started a brand, Hue and Grace, hueandgrace.com, of hormonal imbalance products. So we're telling those stories on behalf of the
Interesting. So it's almost like,
it's like how I built this. It's like how I built this with a click to buy.
That's very cool. I actually am really excited you have to send it to us so we could put the link down in the you know, in the channels and everything. So that is very cool. Definitely keep us updated there. So I'm gonna keep that as our time, at least for us to chat. I have a number of questions here. Individuals who are listening in, feel free to ask those questions or send them to the VisualFizz account as well.
Hundreds of thousands of people have sent in a question. So we have hundreds of thousands of questions.
We have a ton. We're going to create basically a dictionary long amount of questions for Matt to focus on for the next 6 months. He'll be busy. Let's see, what are we gonna talk about today? Okay, how about this one? So this is, I think, important for a lot of people in the consumer space and starting. You know, there's quite a few consumer packaged good products. There's D2C now. You know, how did you partner with Walmart? Like, how did that happen? I mean, that's a pretty large partnership.
One of my good friends is a guy named Peter Rahal. He started RX Bar, which was obviously a massive success in and of itself. And he used to always say, you got to fish where the fish are biting. And what that means is you got to sell your product where the type of people who want to buy it are buying stuff. And in my instance, Walmart wanted innovative beverages. They came to me and they said, hey, do you want to come talk about building this functional beverage set? And a lot of people would say, oh, how did you know your product would be ready for Walmart? Is it right for the Walmart shopper? Mm-hmm. Do the Walmart shoppers drink water? That is right. Now that's not for everybody. You know, some consumer products companies should have or do have a different channel strategy. Maybe their channel strategy is to focus on natural retailers like Whole Foods. Maybe their channel strategy is to focus on convenience store style outlets. My channel was, where is water sold? Yeah. Walmart probably sells more water.
We should start putting some kegs of that into just, you know, school water fountains and college water fountains, and then you've got caffeinated water.
But that wasn't my channel strategy. My channel strategy.
No, I know. I'm just joking. No, that's very interesting though, and what a great quote. Really, I mean, just thinking that way, because it's such an obvious statement, but it's something that's so kind of underqualified when it comes into the real world, because everybody's like, oh, this, that. It's like, just go where people are. You know, and sometimes it's much easier said than done. But in this case, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's like, you have this product, people are going to buy it, right? They buy this, that, the other that are, you know, relatable product lines. So why wouldn't they purchase yours, which is a new, kind of a new product in that space. Very cool. So this is a good one, because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, that are fiddling with the idea of getting a co-founder, and that's not an easy thing, because you really have, I mean, you really have to trust this person. You're getting in a relationship with this person for the next 3, 5, 10 years. I mean, and they have access to all your funds. You talk to them every day, all this stuff. It's a tough decision. And so it seems like you started off kind of taking it on your own, but you found you really wanted to bring on a co-founder. Kind of walk us through the difference between starting yourself and then finding an opportunity where you're like, you know what, a co-founder makes sense now. You know, what's your thought on having a co-founder, not having a co-founder?
I think in general, it should happen organically. Like in the instance of Protein Bar, I thought I had a co-founder, like my best friend. I said the subject line, we're doing this, right? But then organically, it just didn't make sense to have a smoothie shop with 2 MBA holders as owners. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense. Limitless, sort of the same thing. It was going to be me and my thing, and I brought people in to help start it, but it was really my business. And in the instance of SHOPFLIX, I knew I was starting a business focused around shopping, where our core viewer or consumer is a 30+ woman. So by that regard, I felt disingenuous doing it by myself. Now, I would have done it by myself had I not been able to find someone who organically fit with what I was trying to do.
Sure.
And that's where Lindsay came in. And it's been not a perfect marriage. No marriage is perfect. It's been a perfect fit. Her skill set complements mine. What she wants to focus on and do complements mine. And we make decisions together. Is it easy? Fuck no. It's so hard. Especially when I'm so used to doing everything by myself. And So used to doing everything her way too. So it's not easy, but it had to happen organically. I don't think I like would have put a posting searching for co-founder, which is what some people do. And there's actually even some organizations that like On Deck where they pride themselves on helping you find a co-founder. No, just go start a business. And if it makes sense that you bring people along the way, then do it. That's sort of where I come in. Like just like with dating, you don't go out looking for a wife. I know figuratively, like you go looking to court people and it turns into a marriage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have only a few minutes left, but I think one very crucial question for all entrepreneurs, and I think a lot of the people who watch this are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs, is what qualifies, kind of like what allows you to be successful building, this is two businesses now and multiple kind of in the process that you've helped grow and you are part of. If you were to kind of sum it up into just a few sentences, like what is the qualifier of success for businesses, for being a business owner, for businesses?
Simple. It's solving a problem and getting people who want to pay for that solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's about as simple as it is. So that's really all, which it sounds crazy, but oftentimes entrepreneurs just are entrepreneurs. They just want to start something and they'll start something that's really not that big of a problem. Yeah. Or if it's a problem, it's not a problem so much so that people want to pay for it. Because that's a nice little solution, but am I willing to, is it that much worse than what I'm already doing?
Yeah, you're definitely right. And I think that's where what you mentioned long ago and in the beginning of this whole conversation, which was doing your research up front. And I think one thing I've learned is if you ask your parents and your friends and all of these other individuals, hey, is this a good idea? They'd be like, yes. Absolutely, it's a great idea because they want you to, succeed. And it depends. I have Russian parents, and they're very forward if they don't like the idea. They're like, no, it's not a good idea. But I think the big thing is asking people you don't know, and you kind of brought that up. It's like talk to people that you don't know, and that would really be honest about something, and see what their thoughts are, and see if there's a big enough, kind of like you mentioned, big enough pool of fish that would actually pay for your services and what they would pay. So would you say that like market research is pretty fundamental in building out something?
Talking to the people who you want to buy your product before you have it makes sense, but it's hard to do that. And I even joke that buyers are liars. Buyers will tell you like your, friends and family, oh yeah, that sounds great. But until you actually do it, and you do it with conviction, it kind of doesn't really matter. So
yeah, no, there's like a phrase we use sometimes because I've launched a couple businesses that weren't as successful in the past years ago, and it's like everybody will love your idea until you ask for money, and then everybody is quiet. And so I think that's something, is like you said, is somebody willing to pay for this thing? And in the case of two food-based businesses so far, if they're hungry and they like it, yeah, they're going to pay for it. We have clients who need marketing and they don't want to do it, and they're not people that are marketers, so they pay for it. And that's the beauty of kind of being an entrepreneur. But Matt, I really appreciate your time here today. This was awesome. Like we could have easily gone for another hour here. The floodgates have opened and everybody just wants more of you. But we can only give them so much. But I really appreciate it. Once again, everyone, this is Matt Matros. He made sure that I said his name right. And I think I got it. Right?
It's not intuitive.
No, for sure. And so I really enjoyed our conversation. Honestly, I love the food and beverage space. It's a very cool space that I have not dabbled in myself, but always think about. But overall, I just really want to thank all the attendees of today. I want to thank Matt. I want to thank the VisualFizz team that allowed us to chat here, as well as anybody that's watching in the future on YouTube, on our blog, on Medium, and other channels like that. If you have any other additional questions, Matt, can they contact us to maybe ask you more questions in the future or something along those lines?
Or Instagram, Matt Matros. I don't really use the Twitter, but
no worries. Well, hit up Matt, I guess. If I gave them the ability to hit you up on Instagram and ask a lot of entrepreneur questions. But thanks again, you guys, and Matt, have a wonderful rest of your week. And we'll have to buy some caffeinated water pretty soon to stay alert.
Available nationwide at Walmart and other fine retailers.
Yeah.
SHOPFLIX Studios.
For the low price of.
Thank you for so flattered that you thought of me.
Thank you very much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.